What's going on, data devotees? This is Jameson here. So this video is on a sort of introduction, orientation, and navigation of the different resources and the course itself for CPP 526, Foundations of Data Science 1. So what we're going to look at is essentially the online platform that we use, which is both a combination of a syllabus, a schedule, and also a textbook in there, as well as some of the different resources that we use to communicate with you and resources that y'all can use to be able to communicate with each other. So we're going to go through those. I think that if you've already had time to dig into a lot of this material and even dig into the textbook, that you're going to find, you're still going to find this very beneficial. Obviously, if you have not had time to dig into those things, you will find this beneficial. And what's more, we're going to talk about some things that might not fully be in the syllabus yet, and give you some tips and tricks about just kind of doing having a smoother ride over the next 6 weeks, if you will, in this course, and especially when it comes to time management and kind of what you should be focusing on, as well as some really valuable resources that are going to make your life a heck of a ton easier, if I may say so myself. So cool. Without further ado, let's jump right in. And as you could already see, I'm on the Foundations of Data Science Part 1 homepage. Now, one thing to be aware of is that there is a spring version of this homepage, and there's also as well as the rest of the book, the rest of the course, and there is a summer version, and there's also a fall version. So make sure that above all, you're in summer 2020. That's sum-2020. And make sure you're looking at the right part. That holds true for also GitHub and some of the different platforms that we're using as well. Just make sure that you're in the right, it's the right course, but make sure you're using the right term, because we update our material every single iteration, every single time we teach this course. So yeah. Okay, well, so that being said, again, I'm on the homepage here. Excuse me. And so if we go through, we can see just some basic information about the course itself, and then information about me. But one thing I do want to point out is, even though we say that there is this sort of class location and it's at this Zoom link, I actually won't be holding many sessions in Zoom that are in real time. If you need to have a one-on-one with me, that's really your best bet for being able to get help. I realize I have a bit of a late start to this session, this week, and I have to get back to a few of you regarding emails and questions, but I do apologize for that. But typically, I try my best to be as responsive as possible, and also to be able to give the one-on-one time that you all need, especially when you're stuck in a coding rut and different things like that. Hopefully, though, at the end of this video, you'll have enough understanding of the resources available to you to be able to jump right in on your own, as the videos that I create, as well as obviously the textbook, tend to hold a lot of the answers. And in fact, I've already created a video for every single lab that we're going to be doing. So if you do want to schedule some time with me, you can simply click on the schedule button here under office hours, and that's going to take you to my Calendly page. And so you have to, unfortunately, you have to create an appointment 24 hours in advance. I'm not sure if that's EST, but it's simple as clicking the date, choosing the time slot, and if you believe that you might take up more than 20 minutes, you've got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of ground to cover, feel free to hit that 7:10 p.m. button, and that way you don't have any students lined up after you. But I tend to be more than flexible in providing sufficient time to be able to explain concepts. Usually we don't get back-to-back meetings, but at least not in the beginning of the course, except for a few folks who need a little bit of extra help. So it's as simple as that. Click on that. It will send me a message, and then we'll have an automatic Zoom appointment made up. So Here we have textbooks. I have answered some emails about this already and received plenty of them. However, there are no required textbooks for this course. You don't really need to purchase anything. However, a lot of these are actually free, so feel free to download them. You can, if you so choose, pay a bit of money to the authors. These are available on places like LeanPub, for example. And LeanPub allows authors to be able to create books that are kind of constantly in development. Anybody can download them, and typically they're free. So, is this free? Minimum price $20. When did that happen? All right, but typically they're free. Let me know. I certainly have other books and things like that to share. So, cool. All right, so we're in the syllabus now. And of course, the goals of this course are all listed here. Mastery of functions and the building blocks of R, knowing different variable types, data structures, and how to construct and manipulate different data sets, using logical statements, that's true or false, which you will be using, I believe, in the very next lab, to be able to create and analyze data. You can build custom visualizations through base graphics in R, and I'll probably go through a couple other extensions or what are called packages in R that so you can do some advanced graphics as well. And also being able to create dynamic dashboards and different data products using a particular extension called R Shiny. So we'll learn all about that. It's quite a bit to learn in 6 weeks, but we're just learning kind of the fundamentals of the R language and learning a little bit about the weeds, but then we're going to get into some fun stuff as well. So we try and make all these assignments pretty interesting and enjoyable for you guys. So right on. So assigned reading materials, there is the course textbook, which you can access, and hopefully you've at least looked at that at the very least right now. Let's go over grades real quick. So this is how it's going to be. If you get these particular percentage scores, you're going to get that letter grade. And we'll go through each of these. But typically, just to talk about, you know what? I'll talk about this afterwards, just because it'll be easier to understand in the context of knowing these assignments a little bit better. So the first assignments that you'll be getting are the weekly lab assignments. This is where you get sort of a template and you get a web page that provides some set of data that you need to work with. It will give you several challenges or some questions that you'll need to answer, and you'll need to show the code that you've written to be able to answer or reproduce those questions. And these are pretty much graded pass or fail. I mean, for some students, I really wish sometimes I can give them like 110%, give them extra credit, and just because of absolutely incredible jobs that they've done. And what's more, I mean, if you're able to complete approximately half of the assignments and show that you've really shown your best effort, and show that you've some grasp of the material, then that's going to be enough to be able to warrant a pass. I tend to be pretty flexible with these, pretty lenient. Obviously something that I really hope you don't choose to take advantage of, because really this is your opportunity to struggle on really challenging questions, to fly and thrive in easier questions, and obviously put your knowledge to the test. That's what school is all about. And so I really hope that you really give these your all. And yeah, so that's that. I mean, this is your time to really get feedback from me about not only answering the questions correctly, but also delivering them in a data product that is appealing to the eye. Is that something that you might want to deliver to your supervisor or your boss or your client one day? So even if your code is perfect, I'm still going to give you some sort of feedback. Typically, a lot of times when a student provides a lab assignment that is just absolutely wonderful code, but their formatting for all of the text and the headers and sort of the layout and scheme of the the way that they deliver the code, if that could use improvement, then I'll provide feedback on that. If I can't provide feedback on that, I will let you know it is a perfect assignment, and it's happened. So strive for perfection. This is your opportunity to not only learn about coding well, but also being able to create an appealing data product that combines human readable English and machine readable code so that broad audiences can understand it. Even if they don't know R, even if they look at your code and it's a bunch of gibberish to them, they still should be able to look at your data product and understand what's happening. So that's something that I want to stress. And what's more, you can use these for your portfolio. Hopefully you start building a portfolio throughout this course. And this is really an opportunity to take some great assignments, have some awesome output, and really make it look polished, because that really is all the difference for a lot of potential employers out there. So yeah, next we get into the final dashboard project and the explainer assignment. So these won't happen until weeks 5 to 6, towards the very end of the course, but it's important to start thinking about them now. And so what is the dashboard project? Well, essentially we already have a dashboard created for you. We provide it for you. We might switch that up so that to give 2 different types of dashboards, but the one dashboard you most definitely will see is the Tempe, Arizona city data on motor vehicle collisions and pedestrian accidents. And so there's what's called the crash board, and it breaks it down into these different sections of where did the accident happen, who was involved, and different things like that. But it also has all these other variables. And so what you're going to be doing is taking that dashboard and tweaking it, adding new sections, and then making it more informative, more insightful, maybe even doing some tweaks to the design as well so that it becomes more aesthetically pleasing. So what you're doing here is really adapting a dashboard. It's rather straightforward once you really get the gist of it. And I do have a video on that shows you kind of how to do that already up. But it's just something to think about. Keep in mind that when we're doing anything that involves dashboards throughout this course, pay extra special attention to that. It's not something that's going away. You're going to be doing it for your final projects. Now, granted, this isn't something that you really have to start thinking about too soon, but I would start thinking about it halfway through the course or something. Maybe even take a look at it. So what's the explainer assignment? And this is only 10% of your grade, but nonetheless, this is also called the code through. So what is a code through? This is your opportunity to be able to create some sort of a tutorial for your fellow students, for a broader audience, a lay audience, anything like that. And it can be essentially explaining something that you've learned or you've chosen to research outside of the content that we'll be going over in this course. So you're not simply kind of regurgitating something from the textbook or something from one of these assignments, unless of course you're bringing some sort of new technique or some different way to do something. That is totally encouraged. However, this is an opportunity for you to really branch out, find something that you're very interested in, that you're capable of doing in R. And maybe we didn't really touch on it too much over these next 6 weeks, but this is your time to shine in showing, hey, you might like this. This is pretty neat. This is how you do it. Here's an example of it, etc., etc. Here are my sources. Yeah. And so that all being said, this is really the opportunity for you to actually use human readable text. And so I would say this is the only opportunity where this is the only opportunity where academic integrity can come into play. So do be careful. Always cite your sources. I'm really, if ever you feel you should cite your sources with any of these assignments, you should. But this is really where that's going to come into play. So just keep that in mind. And lastly, there are discussion topics. So this is in YellowDig, which looks a bit like this. You can access this in Canvas, and we'll jump in there in a second. However, essentially, this is your participation points score. So Every single week, you have a certain maximum of 20 points that you cannot exceed. So every time you make a post, you get a point or 2 points. Every time you make, actually it says here, make a new pin. They're called pins. Did not know that. You get 5 points for a new pin. If people are commenting on your post, you get points. If you comment on other posts, you get points. If somebody likes your post, you get points. If you end up getting some cool accolades from your instructor, you'll get points for that as well. So it's a great opportunity to not only get to know your fellow students, but also engage in kind of a deeper discussion about what data science is and its context in the social sectors as well as the private sectors. And kind of what new developments are happening in the field, and what's particularly salient at this time, what's going on, for example, with the global pandemic and public health data. And I know that's certainly going to be a subject of discussion at some point over the next 6 weeks. So something to keep in mind. Anyways, technically, it used to be true when this course was 7 weeks. Of course, this is a bit abbreviated down to 6 weeks, but it used to be the case that you could miss an entire week without doing anything on YellowDig, and you would still get your participation. You could still get 100% or 10% in this case in your participation grade, but that may not be the case here. So I strongly recommend that you are constantly engaging at least once a week. Consistently engaging, I should say, with these discussion topics, and really adding and substantively contributing to a lot of the conversations that are taking place. So I strongly encourage that. So make sure you do that. This week's first assignment, of course, is introducing yourself on YellowDig. So please make sure that you do that. Later missing assignments. All right. So this is not a normal time for anybody. And so that's entirely understandable. I mean, even if this crisis was not taking place currently, you're still going to have moments where life just happens. Life gets in the way. Life is what happens when you're making plans. And so, I'm a human. Most of the people I know are humans. So the thing is, if you need a little bit of extra time, if you need help, it's really no problem. I mean, we're pretty lenient with that. If I see that, like, if you need it constantly, then, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's just, don't do that. I guess I really prefer not to deal with that. Or have to deal with that, unfortunately. So if anything is late, just let me know why that's the case, and hopefully none of your assignments are missing. That all being said, while we're on the topic of late and missing assignments, you get one free pass for the weekly labs. So if you miss a lab, you can still get 100%. It won't count against you. There are 6 labs in total, and one lab for each chapter. You can miss one lab, and so you essentially get this free pass. You can use it really for any lab from the very beginning to the very end of the course. And I will say this, I strongly recommend you save that free pass for either A, when life gets in the way while you're making plans, so any surprises or anything like that, you just know you can't get it in. It happens. Or B, save it for really the very end when you want to focus on your code through or your explainer assignment. And also when you want to focus on that final dashboard project, because that's going to take up quite a bit of time. And of course, typically you're going to be dealing with other final projects at that time as well. So you want to be able to give that your all. So if that means missing a lab, then save that free pass for then. All right, cool. Academic integrity and honesty. Just don't plagiarize. Now, this is really weird with code, right? I mean, you'll have millions of users who are going to be using some sort of a extension in R, and they all run into the same problem. So they all Google the same more or less the same exact words paraphrastically or something. And then invariably they will encounter the same solution on the same very popular website for solving our problems, something like Stack Overflow, for example. And they're just going to take the code right out of that. And you know what? That's no big deal, because presumably you're going to take that code and you're going to adapt it to whatever problems that you have. But it does cross into this weird gray area when it comes to plagiarism and coding. So, I mean, just if you can help it, be careful with it. If it's very obviously not your code, that's an issue. And what's more, like if me or the director of the program is able to, say, Google a chunk of your code or a line, put it in quotations, put it in the Google machine, and then we're able to find that exact code reproduced elsewhere and you didn't credit it properly, that's when we start to run into a little bit of trouble here. So do be careful about that. But otherwise, I mean, it's very common to kind of recycle code. I recycle my own code constantly because sometimes there's just a right way to do things and a most efficient way to do things, and that's how it works. With the walkthrough, that's really your opportunity to actually use English, the English language, rather than a machine-readable language like R, and to not properly cite your sources. So do be careful when it comes to that. With disability accommodations, you should have, if these are a concern, you should have probably filled out this paperwork already, and I would have received something on it. But if, again, these are unusual times as well. So, especially I know anxiety is flaring up as well as other mental and emotional issues. So certainly it's extraordinarily understandable during these times. So, if you think you need help, if you're having difficulty with motivation or anything like that, feel free to look into disability accommodations. And of course, I will try my best to be able to accommodate your needs and to be able to help you through this course if there's any sort of issue that's going on in your personal lives or just the way that you're feeling. So I do want to make that clear. Okay, cool. So that's the syllabus. I do invite you, please read through that. Make sure you understand it. Revisit this video if you need to. I'll make some bookmarks at the bottom so it's easier to navigate. Okay, so our course schedule is a little bit funky right now because we actually lost a week. So usually this is designed for a 7-week course, and we of course have 6 weeks. So you'll notice that there are 2 week 5s. We'll probably make some sort of adjustment between Lab 5 and Lab 6 to be able to make this a bit more bearable while you focus on your final dashboard project and your code through as well. Each of these expand, and they will also lead you right into not only the lab, but oftentimes the textbook as well. So do make sure that you look through each one of these. Here, the assigned readings take you right to the textbook. And you gotta love that hangover GIF. I got to write this chapter, so that was a lot of fun. Got some XKCD comics in there too. And of course, interactive exercises as well. These are nothing to sneeze at. Take your time. Make sure that you try these exercises out. I think the biggest mistake I made the first time that I was learning R and taking a course in R was essentially just reading a book on R and just reading the code. Like I'd be able to memorize the code or something. Not my recommendation for learning R. I would recommend that you are not only using these practice exercises, which simulate the R console and R Studio, but what's more, to be able to open up R, use the myriad array of practice data sets that you have available to you that you'll learn more about as we go on, and use those to put into use some sort of new concept or technique that you've been learning about, reading about one of these chapters, or that you're seeing demonstrated in any of the videos that I'm putting up. Cool. So that covers the schedule. Again, never too early, I should say, to start focusing on thinking about what you're going to write your code through on. If you have any experience with geographic information systems, you would, there's a package for that. There's an extension for that. It's kind of like that Apple commercial, right? If you are really artistically minded and you want to create some visualizations that are really, really engaging, but also quite aesthetically pleasing as well as accurate and robust, there are packages for that. There are extensions for that. If you really like cats and probably dogs too, because I think there's, I think it's like hashtag our cat ladies and hashtag our dog gentlemen or something like that. I don't know. I don't know why that's gendered, but yeah, if you really like cats, there's a package to make a scatter plot where all your points are little cat faces, and then you can do that for your code through. If it's fun, whatever. It's like, have fun with it. And, you can make a catter plot. That's probably what the package is called, but if it's not, that's what I would call it. Right. So, yeah, and, even if you don't have any sort of coding experience whatsoever, this is your first time coding, maybe you haven't even used Excel before, then, what's something you enjoy? Show a data set. It doesn't have to be a new extension. It doesn't have to be a new technique. It could be some data set that you found really interesting. Just make sure that you're equipped with the tools to be able to explain that data set in a way where you can really show why it's useful for others to know and be aware of that data set, and let your passion kind of bleed through. My big thing is data visualization. I believe I've mentioned that before, and I'll certainly mention it over the next 6 weeks. And so if I were to ever do a code through, in fact, probably the majority of code throughs that I have written in the past professionally have been focusing on using different extensions to visualize data. And in fact, that's oftentimes what I make presentations on and so forth. Okay. Canvas. Check it. Make sure your notifications are on. Make sure that you're paying attention to announcements. So we have this this first announcement here. Here's a Meet Your Instructor video, which you guys can check out. Hey, there's me. Uh-oh. Did I just let my political persuasion be revealed? Anyways, I just started watching Rising, guys. I'm not a huge... It's very not objective. But anyways, actually, I kind of like it though. It's not objective, but I kind of like it. Whatever. And then who doesn't love John Oliver? So, anyways, yeah, beware of what you share. So we'll check out GitHub in a second. This of course again is Canvas, and then you can access your grades here. Of course, I'm not going to click that because that'll show everybody else's grades, even though there aren't any, so it doesn't really matter. But there will be a lot of announcements coming through. I try and do one once a week, especially when it comes to releasing the lab answers. So do check those out as well. And yeah, so then there's also YellowDig. We talked about this before. You can watch this neat little video from YellowDig as to how to get it going, but just make sure that you are consistently once a week getting enough participation points in here and actually substantively contributing to conversation, I think is really the most important part. Unfortunately, due to despite all of the wonderful attributes that distance learning allows and creating lecture videos and so forth allows in terms of advantages, in terms of reinforcing knowledge, there is that disadvantage of not being able to have kind of a physical in-person cohort to be able to communicate with it. So this is your opportunity to be able to connect with others who are either in the same area as you, physically or who are in the same area as you professionally or academically. And so I think it's a really great opportunity to actually try when you're in here and actually engage with folks and actually learn about each other. And because, and especially in the next part that we're going to take a look at called GitHub, really there's going to be a lot of leaning on one another, and also a lot of folks will have the same questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all of those because that's our job. So, issues. So this is the GitHub website for the course. Again, make sure it is summer 2020. We actually had a post earlier that was spring 2020 issues. And so this is where kind of the course shell, all of the code lives for this book and for this platform. And so this is all kind of made in R and different extensions from R, which combines a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS, and it's all open source. So any organization, any university is free to be able to take these sources, to be able to take the source code and be able to reproduce it and then make additions to it, make changes to it as they see fit. And it's totally fine. In fact, Georgia State University is doing that right now. Their Andrew Young School is creating more or less an exact copy of this, and then they're just slapping the Georgia State University logo on it and replacing the little sun for ASU with the little panther paw print from Georgia State. So that's pretty cool. So the issues page is typically where you're going to be posting any questions you have regarding text. It could be regarding art in general, but most of the time you're going to see posts here, and you're going to come here to post your own questions and issues when it comes to the lab assignments. So again, something else that is nothing to sneeze at. Do check this out. And you'll probably be visiting it frequently. So I think it would be worth bookmarking this. There is an example. This is an actual question, which is nice. And so Dr. Lisi has already posted essentially what a good question might look like. I really do appreciate this. So just there are some rules. I'll probably make a post that's they're not hard and fast rules, but they're kind of unspoken rules. Essentially, how to ask a question the right way. And this actually is a really good question here from Fairy14 from Mr. Payton. Thanks, Mr. Payton. So yeah, Mr. Payton had posted a really great question here, and it's relatively descriptive at the top. I would like to see maybe a little bit more. What about question number 3 on Lab 1? Like, this is very, this immediately directs our attention to, okay, we're dealing with Lab 1, that's great. Okay, we're dealing with question 3, that's awesome as well. Can you give us a little bit more about specifically the problem? And that's going to be really helpful to other students who visit this website. And again, this is a great question. I do not mean to pick on the original poster whatsoever or call them out. But I'm really excited about this. And what's more, so if you want to post code in GitHub, there's a reason that this actually turned out as this little gray box, and that's because these fences were used. These are called backticks, and if you make 3 of them, you can write code and it will look essentially the same as R code, Python code, or a lot of other code for programming languages. It makes it so that each of these characters takes up the same amount of space horizontally. And so that's called monotype, mono being 1, right? So it's the space itself is somewhat monolithic, and it's excellent for essentially being able to reproduce a chunk of code. Try not to take screenshots. Do try to, this is really great when it comes to the content formatting here. So we've got some bold, we've got some italics and things like that. And you can even assign it to, so if you wanted to assign this to someone, you feel free to assign it to me. and I'll get a response in my inbox. I'll be updated anytime somebody posts on here, but if you want me to be particularly responsive, feel free to hit that assignees button. And you can post also more than one person. You can post yourself as well. I could post Dr. Lisi as well, but now he probably just got an email, so sorry about that, Dr. Lisi. Yeah, and you can tag these too. So we can do, let's see. Usually if there's a course bug, you want to flag it as a bug. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna tag that as a good first issue. It's good for newcomers. So cool. All right, again, that is a thank you to Farah14, Fairy, Peyton. Yeah. So come here when you have questions, and you'll see this fill up throughout the next 6 weeks. And also, it's great to familiarize yourself with GitHub, because this is really where you share code, where you collaborate on projects with others. And this is a great place to start building your portfolio. And you do that in something called creating repositories or repos. And even like a potential employer will be able to say, oh, look how active they are on GitHub, or inactive for that matter. So, and this is where you can have your different repos set up, repositories set up. Okay, so that brings us to our last bit here, last resource. This is my YouTube channel. This is where you're currently watching this video through. This video is posted on my YouTube channel. Typically, I will post a video here, usually 1 or 2 videos a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. But a lot of it is probably going to be me remaking videos to make them higher fidelity, cleaner audio, in some cases shorter, although apologies for the length on this. This is my first real orientation video, if you will. But what's more, new thumbnails and kind of changing the focus a bit more from lessons learned from the last time we taught this course. So all of the course videos are really already out. So that's something I think that's important to pay attention to. And you can check them out by week 1, week 2, week 3, and there are already like groups of videos on all of these. They're all HD. They do a nice walkthrough of all the content that you're going to be learning, and you can get very far ahead in the course just by watching these videos, and a lot of them are going to answer your questions. What's most important, I think for you, what's most beneficial is that you will be able to... Get out of here, YouTube. You will be able to get a lab overview. Now, these videos tend to be a bit longer, but it walks you literally through, excuse me, how to access the lab itself, what the kind of precursor material looks like. So here we are downloading and opening the lab. And then literally it's kind of walking through step by step how to do the lab, the first steps that you want to take. And what's more, do not forget this. There are almost always these bookmarks that are going to exist at the bottom, and you just simply click on them. So we're at 15:55 right now in the video. Let me click on that. Now we're at 30:55, and they're all labeled as well. So creating a better title, plotting a league average with points and lines. We've been tricked. I wonder what that means. Oh, yeah, no, I recall. There's something interesting about the data, and I just hope you're excited to find out. Okay, so that's it. I strongly recommend, and please know I'm not using this course to get subscribers in the same way certain professors might use a course to have people buy their book, for example. No, I'm not doing that. But I strongly recommend that you do subscribe to this channel, and you'll be updated. Turn your notifications on so that you get an email whenever a new video comes out. And that's going to be very helpful for you over the next 6 weeks, because you can stay up to date every single time I post a new video. And a lot of times those are going to be very valuable. So I do recommend doing that. And what's more, not only are there videos that relate to all of the contents for the final projects we have here for each week and the lab assignments, but you also have just useful videos as well. So getting to know our studio, our tidbits is interesting. There's just some kind of like brief things to learn about R. I really shouldn't go on YouTube while I'm recording. But anyways, that's about it. So yeah, again, subscribe to this and pay attention when things come out. Do whatever you can to stay notified. Not only of GitHub, you could turn notifications on for your for the issues page here. You can turn notifications on for your YouTube, for my YouTube channel here. And you can also turn notifications on, make sure your notifications are all set for Canvas as well. And that about covers everything. So for the introduction. So just for a quick review, okay, there are 6 lab assignments. You get a free pass on one of them. Academic integrity, don't mess around with that. Obviously, don't plagiarize. And let's see, for the syllabus, the kind of major grades are coming from participation. So the labs, the participation, and then of course the 2 final projects, which is the code through and then the dashboard project. So just make sure that you get your lab in every single week. There is one lab that you can skip. I'd save that towards the end. Make sure you're engaging on YellowDig every single week. Because that's going to give you the amount of participation points you need. And I have seen a lot of A's drop to B's, really, and it's been unfortunate because students simply did not have the participation points, and I didn't have the latitude to be able to help them in other assignments in such a way as to preserve them in that A status, when really they were fantastic students. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Make sure you are participating in YellowDig. That's an automated grade thing. I can't, I wish I could perform some latitude. And obviously, life happens again. So, some things can, I'm comfortable switching up or helping you with. Also in the syllabus, you can find contact information for me, as well as how to schedule an assignment for me with office hours. In the course schedule, you have access to the textbook. We'll also link to helpful videos in there. And that's going to lay out when things are due. So do pay attention to that. Pay attention to Canvas. Make sure your notifications are turned on. We're going to have announcements coming out once, maybe twice a week. Certainly, at the very least, we're going to be releasing homework answers once all of the labs get turned in. And those are typically very helpful. Again, YellowDig, don't neglect that. Come to the issues page, make sure this is bookmarked, and this is really going to be a great resource for you to lean on when it comes to asking questions yourself and for finding other people who had the exact same question as you, and it's already been answered by us. So do, even before you post, come here, check it out, see if a question has already been asked and answered. And that saves you time, that saves us time, that makes everybody's life a little bit easier. And lastly, check out the YouTube page. Strongly recommend you subscribe and turn on notifications or get emails whenever a new video comes out. I promise it's not too spammy. And there are already a host of videos that go over the entire course and all of its contents. Check those out, including help on the labs. So I can't stress that enough. I think it's going to be major answer to a lot of your questions, or provide a lot of significant answers to many of your questions. So, and what's more, there are other resources as well, such as navigating GitHub and GitHub desktop here. I do know there's another playlist that I really wanted to show, and I don't know why it's just simply not popping up. Right. but it's essentially, how do you practice in data analysis in R? What are tips and tricks and things like that? So when I find that, I'll share it. And in the meantime, I hope this video was helpful. Good luck on the rest of your first week orienting yourself to these material, and enjoy diving further and further and deeper into all the cool stuff that we have available for this course. And I look forward to week 2. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.